How to actually achieve your goals in 2025. January 2025. New year, new goals, new you. But this isn't your first time saying that. You made the same promise last year, and the year before that. The hard truth is, in 1 year, 12 months, 52 weeks, 365 days, 525,600 minutes, and 31.5 million seconds, most of you will see no change. You'll still be in the same place, stuck where you are now, and some of you may even move backward. Why? Because your actions won't change. You'll keep repeating the same patterns, hoping for a different outcome. And as Einstein said, that's the definition of insanity. Here's the sad reality. By the time you watch this video, many of you have already abandoned your New Year's goals. Statistics show that 92% of people will give up on their resolutions this year. But if you don't want to be part of that statistic, it's time to redefine insanity. This year, you'll need to do something completely different. You'll have to rethink how you set and approach your goals. Before learning how to achieve goals, you must first become someone who is goal-oriented. 1. Introduction to goal setting and flow. Have you ever felt like you're constantly moving from one task to the next, unsure if any of it is actually getting you closer to your goals? When I was 13, I had an unexpected sense of purpose and direction. I was training to become a world-class rugby player. I worked out with unwavering discipline 6 days a week, and I surfed with a devotion that felt almost sacred. These passions gave my life structure, a single channel where my energy and focus could flow. Everything made sense because it all pointed toward one destination, my future. But then, everything changed on the rugby field. A head injury left me bedridden for a year and almost took my life. Rugby was gone. Surfing was gone. Even walking for 30 minutes became an exhausting challenge, and for 6 years, I struggled with chronic physical debilitation. Blurred vision, memory loss, and barely being able to function. But worse than the physical pain was the hollow emptiness I felt inside. By the time I was 15, 2 years after the injury, my mind began to slowly unravel. I had no goals left, no future to work toward. The identity I had spent years building had fallen apart, leaving me lost and aimless. I didn't know who I was, why I was here, or what made waking up in the morning worth it. One day, on my way to school, I felt a sudden, overwhelming urge. A vivid image appeared in my mind. I saw myself stepping off the train, wandering into the fields nearby, and just walking. Walking endlessly until I could walk no more. I imagined sleeping under a tree, waking up, and repeating the cycle over and over. I wasn't looking for anything specific, I just wanted to break free from everything in a single, desperate act. There's a term for this kind of aimless, chaotic search, a desperate attempt to grasp something that always feels just out of reach. What I was experiencing is what psychologist Mihai Csikszentmihalyi called psychic entropy. 2. Understanding psychic entropy. Psychic entropy describes the natural tendency of our minds to drift into disorder, chaos, and even despair when left without structure. According to Csikszentmihalyi, psychic entropy isn't just a passing state, it's the mind's default mode. Without clear direction, our thoughts wander aimlessly. We dwell on past mistakes, worry about the future, get caught in unproductive daydreams, and feel overwhelmed by existential dread. It's like being a leaf tossed around by the wind, lacking control, lacking direction, and burdened by an ever-growing sense of wasted potential. Every day spent in this state deepens the pain of knowing you're capable of more, yet unable to unlock it. With every misaligned action, your confidence takes a hit, and you begin to question your self-worth, especially when you compare yourself to others who appear to have clarity in a well-directed sense of purpose, seemingly having their lives all figured out. To combat psychic entropy, there are 2 primary approaches. The first is internal, mastering your mind through practices like meditation, mantras, or prayer. The second approach is external, identifying a goal or focal point outside of yourself to bring structure and order to your consciousness. For most people, the external approach is more practical and easier to apply. Peak performers often use a surprisingly simple method to leverage this external focus, allowing them to block out distractions, reduce existential anxiety, and channel their energy with precision. I'll get to that in a moment. At the height of my psychic entropy as a teenager, lost, confused, and struggling with my identity, I came across an old, dusty self-help book that had somehow survived my mom's latest bookshelf purge. For the first time in what felt like forever, something finally made sense. The book was about goal setting and how having clear goals can help sharpen your focus. It was classic self-help material. Simple enough, I thought, maybe this could actually work. I realized I needed a new goal, something entirely different from my dream of becoming a professional rugby player. Given my current condition and my inability to exert myself or function due to the head injury, I chose a goal that felt as distant as possible. Almost arbitrarily, I decided I was going to become a doctor. At the time, it felt like my way out, a path back to stability. As I committed to that goal, something remarkable began to happen. The chaos in my mind started to subside. As my sense of purpose and my determination to become a doctor grew stronger, my thoughts and actions became more aligned. I started studying harder. I ate healthier to improve my ability to focus. I became more intentional about who I spent my time with. Even my sleep became more disciplined. As all my actions began to realign with intention toward this goal, the scattered pieces of my daily life started falling into place, all oriented around this new North Star. In my journey to becoming a doctor, I stumbled upon the surprisingly simple method that all peak performers use to structure their consciousness and bring harmony to their lives, as described by Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi. Csikszentmihalyi described this decades ago, and it's called becoming goal-directed. 3. The importance of becoming goal-directed. When you become goal-directed, you develop the ability to focus intentionally on specific long-term goals. Most professionals approach their work like a pinball, bouncing from task to task, constantly deflected by obstacles and distractions. With clear goals, however, you become a guided missile, locked onto your target and equipped to achieve it. Even more importantly, becoming goal-directed is a prerequisite for entering a flow state. Additionally, being goal-directed is a fundamental prerequisite for achieving a flow state. As Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi, the man who popularized the concept of flow state, explains, when a significant goal is pursued with determination, and all of one's activities align into a unified flow experience, harmony is brought to consciousness. A person in harmony, regardless of their actions or circumstances, understands that their psychic energy isn't being wasted on doubt, regret, guilt, or fear but is consistently channeled into meaningful use. Goal-directedness focuses attention, organizes experience, and infuses life and the human condition with meaning, effectively silencing the turmoil of psychic entropy. It's also a prerequisite for peak performance and accessing the flow state. You can't perform at your best if your consciousness isn't structured around clear goals. Goals act as the channel through which your consciousness flows. Without goals, there's no flow. Goals activate your prefrontal cortex, improving decision-making and focus. They quiet the negative chatter of your brain's default mode network, helping to reduce worry and rumination. Most importantly, goals stimulate your brain's reward centers, providing a sense of purpose and fulfillment as you progress toward them. Interestingly, as I became goal-directed as a teenager, I didn't end up becoming a doctor. But that's not the point. It doesn't matter whether the initial goal is entirely accurate. One of the biggest barriers to becoming goal-directed and achieving peak performance is the desire to feel absolute certainty that the goal you're pursuing is the right one for you. What truly matters is structuring your consciousness around a goal, sometimes any goal. Now, becoming goal-directed is just the beginning. The pinnacle of goal-directedness is aligning as many of your daily actions as possible with your long-term vision. That's what we're about to explore. How to actually achieve your goals. 1. Importance of systems over goals. Only about 8% of people successfully achieve their goals. I believe this is because most people focus on setting goals rather than creating systems to achieve them. When I shifted from setting random goals, which are basically just wish lists and the reason most people don't achieve them, to breaking down my vision into actionable daily steps and holding myself accountable, everything changed. That's when I began achieving far more of my goals. 2. Building a goal stack. You might already have a pretty good idea of what your goals are, but we're about to go way beyond goal setting. We're about to help you create something called a goal stack. The goal stack is about creating a clear path from an unattainable, infinite purpose down to specific goal-directed actions you'll carry out on a weekly, daily, hourly, and even minute-to-minute basis. Think of the goal stack as a staircase, carefully constructed with the right structure to lead you to your ultimate end state. Each step must genuinely lead you closer to where you want to go. If even one step is missing, you won't reach your destination. For most people, their ultimate goal remains just a lofty idea in their mind, with no staircase, or a partially built one, that leads nowhere. To avoid this, we'll ensure each goal builds upon the one before it. We'll design this goal stack layer by layer, creating a clear and structured path to your destination. First, we start with purpose, the overarching reason behind all your pursuits. Next come your hard goals, the ambitious targets that guide your efforts. From there, we break down those hard goals into annual goals, what you can realistically achieve in a year. Then, we set quarterly goals, followed by monthly goals, and finally, weekly goals. And, of course, all of this requires consistent daily execution to bring it to life. Don't worry if this feels overwhelming, I'll guide you through it step by step. I'll show you exactly how to build this framework so you can become goal-directed, ensuring you're always living and working in alignment with your biggest goals. This leads us to the first preliminary step in building your goal stack, expanding your possibility space. Growing up in Ireland, my little brother and his friends all shared a passion for rugby. They were equally talented, but as they grew older, their paths diverged dramatically. One of the boys set an ambitious goal. He wanted to play for his local county team. Believing his skills made this achievable, he trained accordingly, followed a standard routine, and competed in local leagues. His actions matched his belief, and he successfully achieved his goal of making the county team. The second boy, however, dreamed even bigger. He told the others that he planned to play for the provincial team. He understood it would require far more practice, but he truly believed it was possible. He pursued better training opportunities. He traveled greater distances to compete against tougher opponents. He used his savings to invest in higher quality equipment. All of this was made possible by his expanded mindset and his belief that he could make it to the provincial team. But my brother? He was a bit different. As an 8-year-old, Caitlin didn't just dream of county or provincial success, he envisioned himself captaining the Irish national team and competing in the World Cup. It was an outrageous goal for a young kid, the kind that most adults would dismiss with a patronizing smile. But because he believed that this seemingly impossible future was achievable, he didn't just train harder, he completely transformed his life, taking actions that the other two boys couldn't have imagined were worth taking or even possible. He sought out legendary coaches and pushed his body to its absolute limits. His expanded belief in what was possible led him to Blackrock College, a renowned institution famous for producing elite rugby talent. Without this expansive mindset, he would never have taken these actions. He could have easily settled for playing rugby with his friends or competing against local teams. Without that belief, he wouldn't have seen any other option as viable. Years later, as I watched he lead the Irish national team and compete in Paris at the Rugby World Cup, I was in awe of the depth and expansiveness of his conviction and how it had brought him to this moment. He had turned an improbable goal into reality. What struck me was that all three boys had started with the same raw talent. The difference lay in what they believed they could achieve. Their possibility space, their internal map of what they saw as possible for themselves, shaped the paths they perceived and the ones they dared to take. The bigger your thinking, the wider your possibility space becomes. This concept of possibility space comes from complexity science. It refers to the full range of potential states or outcomes that a complex system can occupy. Similarly, your possibility space encompasses your beliefs about the potential paths your life could take, the career outcomes you see as achievable, the relationships you believe you could realistically pursue, and the skills you feel capable of mastering. Think of your possibility space as the beam of light you use to navigate the world. It determines what you can see and what remains hidden in the shadows. Like a flashlight, the first boy's beam only illuminated a narrow slice of possibility space. The boy who played for the provincial team. His flashlight shone wider, revealing more possibilities, though some areas still remained in the dark. His floodlight, however, illuminated every corner, uncovering paths to extraordinary success that others might have dismissed as impossible. And again, it's not that he had more resources or talent. He was just an 8-year-old. My little brother. He simply had a broader sense of what was possible and worth pursuing. His possibility space transformed what seemed like unrealistic options or actions to the other boys into viable ones for him, actions he pursued, which ultimately led to his extraordinary success. Another example of how your possibility space shapes your reality can be seen in Elon Musk. Musk's ambitious goal of making humanity a multiplanetary species stems from his expansive possibility space. He believed it was possible to establish human life on Mars, and this belief unlocked previously unimagined options, like traveling to Russia to negotiate with rocket engineers and calculating the cost differences between raw materials and assembled rockets. Elon Musk's belief in radically cheaper rockets led to the creation of the Falcon 1. Its success enabled more launches, more data, and eventually the first commercial spacecraft to dock with the ISS. This relentless pursuit of lower costs paved the way for reusable rockets, a milestone Musk achieved with the Falcon 9. Today, that same belief fuels the development of Starship, a reusable spacecraft engineered to transport humans to Mars. However, if Musk had a narrow possibility space, he might have simply taken his PayPal fortune and invested it in a safe, conventional SaaS company. With a slightly broader possibility space, he might have focused on incremental improvements to NASA's efficiency instead of pursuing a revolutionary approach to space exploration. Without his expansive possibility space, Musk wouldn't have taken the bold actions that uncovered the solutions needed to turn his vision into reality. The possibility space is the invisible force that shapes our lives. It determines what you see as possible to pursue, the actions you perceive as available to take, and ultimately, the outcomes those actions create, or fail to create, for you. 5 evidence-based strategies to achieve your goals. Now, let's talk about 5 simple, evidence-based strategies you can use to dramatically increase your chances of achieving your goals. When it comes to setting and achieving goals, the key difference between those who succeed and those who don't usually boils down to the actions they take to make their goals a reality. If you look at the science, there are 5 relatively simple strategies you can use to stack the odds in your favor. Call them hacks or habits. They're quick to implement, but they'll dramatically increase your chances of achieving your goals. If you're already doing all 5, that's fantastic, you're winning. But if you're not doing some, or any, of these 5 things, you've got some easy wins you can start applying as soon as you finish this video. Alright, let's dive into point number 1. 1. Strategy 1, write down your goals. Does writing down your goals improve your chances of achieving them compared to not writing them down? Here's what the data shows. We have 2 groups. One group set goals but didn't write them down, and the other group both set and wrote down their goals. One group did not write down their goals, while the other group did. The average goal achievement for the group that set goals but didn't write them down was significantly lower. In contrast, the group that set and wrote down their goals showed much higher achievement. Researchers found that writing down your goals makes you approximately 42% more likely to achieve them. Now, I don't know about you, but if I could increase my chances of achieving my goals by 42% just by writing them down, I'd definitely do it. It doesn't take long to write your goals down, and that's why our first evidence-based strategy for achieving your goals is simple: write them down. Now, it doesn't really matter what format you write them down in. I personally have a Google Doc that I've named Goalkeeper, and I've been doing this for the last couple of years. And I personally like setting quarterly goals rather than annual goals. I refer to my quarterly goals as my quarterly quests. And each quarter, so every 3 months, I like to set around 3 or 4 of them. I found that if I set any more than 4, I don't end up making progress on any of them. And so 3 or 4 seems to be like a reasonable number. 2. Strategy 2. Review your goals regularly. So now we come to insanely simple strategy for actually achieving your goals number 2. Now, here it is worth us understanding a little bit about a part of the brain called the reticular activating system. The RAS is essentially a bundle of nerves at the base of your brainstem that acts as a filter and determines what information your brain pays attention to. Obviously, in day-to-day life, there are millions of sensory inputs your brain could focus on. So how does it know which ones to prioritize? Well, that's where the reticular activating system comes into play. Generally, your brain filters out irrelevant information based on your goals and priorities. It helps you focus on what truly matters. The classic example of this is, let's say you're buying a car and you're like, man, I really want to get a Fiat 500. All of a sudden, by the fact that you've set the intention to buy potentially a Fiat 500, you will suddenly start seeing Fiat 500s literally everywhere you look. And that is not because all of a sudden when you decided to set the goal of buying a Fiat 500, suddenly everyone else also bought Fiat 500s. It's because of your reticular activating system. Because you have set this as a goal for yourself, your brain is more likely to notice all of the Fiat 500s that are floating around the place. And so strategy number 2 for drastically improving our chances of actually achieving our goals, it's to actually look at those goals that you've written down every single week, if not every single day. Mistake number 1 that people make is that they don't set goals in the first place. But you're not going to make that mistake because you're watching this video. Mistake number 2 is that if they do set goals, they don't write them down. And mistake number 3 is that for so many of us, we set goals at the start of the year and then we never look at them again. And so the idea behind strategy number 2 is that we can harness the reticular activating system by actually looking at our goals every single day or every single week. I personally review mine once a week as part of my weekly reset. I've got a little journaling prompt that says, what were my quarterly quests, and how are they going? And that means every single week when I do my weekly resets, it just reminds me to check up on my quarterly goals each week. I also set 3 main priorities for the week. And then, as part of my daily morning manifesto journaling practice, I ask myself a simple question: what were our weekly priorities, and how are they going? I like to refer to it as our rather than my, because it feels like I'm harnessing all parts of my brain. What were our weekly priorities, and how are they going? So, every single week I'm reviewing my quarterly goals, and every single day I'm reviewing my weekly priorities. This doesn't take much time at all. It's like a 10-second task at most. But it's that tiny task your brain needs to remind you, oh yeah, I did intend to sign up for that squash club, or, oh yeah, I did intend to make progress on that work task. Sometimes it's so easy to forget those things because we get caught up in the day-to-day, what's on the calendar, what's happening at work, or what's going on in life. But by literally spending 10 seconds each week reviewing your list of written goals or priorities, that alone can provide such a powerful insight that I'm amazed more people don't do it. And honestly, this video is advice for myself too because I also sometimes fall off. I know all the studies, and I've done tons of research for my book on this topic, but I still sometimes forget to do my weekly reset to review my goals. Sometimes weeks go by without me looking at my goals, and I realize I've been less consistent simply because I forgot to check them. Alright, let's move on to strategy number 3. Strategy 3, monitor your progress. Here we can reference a meta-analysis of about 138 studies covering nearly 20,000 participants. The authors of the meta-analysis found that one simple strategy to improve your chances of achieving your goals is to regularly monitor your progress. In my case, for example, during my weekly reset, I ask myself, what were my quarterly quests, and how are they going? The "how are they going" part encourages me to monitor progress. Generally, I rate them as red, yellow, or green, or I simply note if they're on track or off track. Even that small step is enough to help me track the progress I'm making toward my goals. Every single day, when I take the time to do my morning manifesto and ask myself, what were our priorities for the week, and how are they going? Again, I'm monitoring progress. I define the most important priorities at the start of the week, and now I'm just checking in with myself to see how I'm actually doing at achieving them. Another way I like to monitor my progress is pretty simple. It also makes achieving a goal feel better when you can see your progress, kind of like the leveling up bar in a video game. As you're completing quests and defeating monsters, your experience meter fills up, and there's something incredibly satisfying about that. But what the evidence suggests is that people who take just a small amount of time to regularly monitor their progress are significantly more likely to achieve their goals. And that is why point number 3 is, monitor your progress. Again, it's super easy, super simple, and doesn't take much time. If you're not monitoring the progress of your goals, you're leaving a lot of free goal attainment points on the table. You might as well start doing it, because why not? Strategy 4, visualize obstacles and create plans. Alright, let's move on to strategy number 4, which comes from a psychologist named Gabrielle Attingen. It's a strategy known as mental contrasting. Now, mental contrasting is the idea where you visualize something you want in the future. But it's not just about imagining the outcome. Studies show that people who spend too much time visualizing they've already achieved their goals are, in some cases, less likely to achieve them. However, if you visualize achieving your goals and also contrast it with the obstacles you might face along the way, that's mental contrasting. This approach has been shown to significantly boost people's ability to achieve their goals. And so this psychologist, Gabrielle Attingen, came up with a fairly simple technique called the WOP method, which stands for wish, outcome, obstacle, and plan. Now, the wish and the outcome are where you're essentially setting the goal. There are all sorts of different methods for goal setting. You can use the GPS system, which happens to be my personal favorite. You can think in terms of facts, feelings, and functionality. You can think in terms of wish and outcome, what is the thing you wish for, and what is the outcome that would happen if you achieved that goal. But the key part of the WOP method is the obstacle and the plan. You're visualizing the obstacles that might stand in your way. Let's say I've set the goal of, I don't know, writing my next book by halfway through next year. Alright, cool. What are the obstacles that could get in my way? Well, one obstacle is that I might not make time for it. Another obstacle is that I might run out of ideas. Another obstacle is that I might feel demotivated when I sit down to write. And then the final component of the WOP method is the plan. What is my plan for addressing those obstacles? So I might say, okay, cool, I'm going to block 3 hours on my calendar every morning to focus on writing. I might do a few brainstorming sessions with my team to avoid the problem of running out of ideas, and I might use an app that my team and I built, called VoicePow, to make writing more fun because it allows me to write the book by talking instead of just typing on a computer. And so, strategy number 4 is to visualize obstacles and make a plan. It doesn't take very long to do. Each time you set a goal, you can spend literally 3 minutes thinking, okay, cool, wish, outcome, obstacle, plan. What are the obstacles that could get in my way? And what's my plan for overcoming those obstacles? And again, according to the research, this will drastically improve your chances of actually achieving the goal. And finally, we come to fairly easy strategy number 5, and that is to tie your goals to an identity. 5. Strategy 5, tie goals to identity. Now, the classic example of this is a study where researchers looked at voting behavior. For some of the participants, they asked, will you vote in this election? And for the other half, they asked, will you be a voter in this election? And they found that the people who were asked, will you be a voter, were significantly more likely to vote than those who were simply asked, will you vote? Will you vote? Is an action. Will you be a voter? Is an identity. So the key here is that wherever possible, when you set your goals, take an extra 20 seconds to tie them to an identity. For example, one of my goals is to reduce my visceral abdominal tissue because of genetics and my desire to live longer and healthier. Setting a goal like improving my bench press or reducing visceral adipose tissue is all well and good. But if I take 20 seconds to tie those goals to the identity of, I am a healthy person, it will make it more likely I'll achieve them and stick with them when things get tough because I resonate with that identity. And this is often aligned with the goals I've set for myself. So the question is, for whatever goals you're setting for yourself, how can you tie them to an identity? Because, there's a quote I really like from Tony Robbins: the strongest force in human personality is the need to stay consistent in how we define ourselves. If you label yourself as a procrastinator, you'll actually stay consistent with that identity. But if you define yourself as a YouTuber, you're more likely to stay consistent with that identity instead. If you can overcome imposter syndrome and define yourself as a high performer or an entrepreneur, you're more likely to do the kinds of things that high performers, entrepreneurs, or healthy people do. You're more likely to actually take those actions. And therefore, you're more likely to achieve your goals in that area. 6. Conclusion: avoiding common goal-setting mistakes. Now, if you incorporate all these 5 things, which I hope you do because they're super easy, evidence-based, and they work, you might still encounter one mistake. That mistake is setting too many goals. So, choose your goals selectively, turn them into actions, and measure your progress regularly. Because ultimately, a goal without a plan is just a wish. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you later. Bye-bye.